Thank you, sir. The next session is a panel discussion, which is going to be the game changer in Indian healthcare scenario. The panel is going to be on the perspectives of holistic approach to the digital integration of healthcare. Now it is very, very opt that other players to bring the integration to have a holistic approach to the digitalization is needed. So we have three eminent speakers who are made a big mark in their own area to speak today on this subject of holistic approach to the digital integration of the healthcare. Our first speaker of today is Ms. Priyanka Agarwal. She is the managing director and partner of Boston Consulting Group, which is an international entity based in India. I know Priyanka has studied our system and the challenges that are available in India, though we have sometimes a problem of plenty. So she will be looking at that. And in today's talk, Priyanka, the managing, also is very passionate about the diversity that is coming up in this space. And she heads healthcare practice in India for Boston Consulting. She also does a lot of other industry strategy thinking. Priyanka has worked across multiple geographies like US, Southeast Asia, and India. She is known for her passion for client impact, pushing the performance trajectory of our clients, challenging the status quo. And she's author of many publications, especially Power to the Patient is a well-known publication by her. The health systems and leapfrogging in India is another article by her. I think she is a graduate from IIM Ahmedabad in 2000 and a gold medalist. And she has completed her BE in Electronics and Communication in Delhi University. Now she is going to talk to us, share her experience, especially on the technology challenges, what are going to be in this holistic approach for digital integration. What does she feel in her space? What we all should concentrate and what should be our focus in the next couple of minutes. Over to you, Priyanka. Welcome to the panel.
Thank you so much, Dr. Swamy, for the very kind words and the introduction, and great to meet you here again. And thank you, Som, and all the members of CAHO for having me today. I think firstly, it was a very appropriate start by Mr. Sharma. Of course, he spoke a lot about what I would call perhaps once in a generation event that is shaping the healthcare industry today in India. And we've been very fortunate as BCG to contribute in a small way to the overall thinking. So I will speak from that perspective, having been both on the outside and a little bit on the inside on thinking through some of this, which started pretty much in 2020. And I know following me, Ajay is speaking, and we were part of definitely shaping what he's continuing to lead and champion. So I'll speak from that perspective, both to pick on a few points of the huge opportunity as I see it, and then coming to Dr. Swamy, what you spoke about, some of the challenges that we will need to think through to tap the tremendous opportunities that Dr. Sharma just spoke about. So first of all, I feel that, the whole ABTM, which very, very lucidly Mr. Sharma just explained, it is perhaps one of the most fundamental reforms happening in India today, not just shaping healthcare, but it's perhaps one of the most fundamental reforms happening in India today. It has been famously compared or called the UPI moment in healthcare. UPI, as we know, and I don't know if some of you know the statistics, the number of transactions happening in UPI is 10x what is happening, let's say in debit or credit card. And that had got triggered by a set of building blocks in the financial services stack that had come into play after, of course, the national identity in the form of Aadhaar had come. And the same is now happening in healthcare. So the kind of explosion we saw in UPI over a short period of 4 to 5 years, that is exactly what could happen in healthcare. with the building blocks that Mr. Sharma spoke about. And he spoke about COVID, and again, I'll take just one data point to show the art of the possible. We all know, those of us who work in healthcare, that we have about 25 million birth cohort, right, in India, 25 million babies that are born. We probably take about an year or more to vaccinate all of them with the basic, vaccination across our 40,000 vaccination centers. And CoWIN, created as a public-private partnership with the same framework that Mr. Sharma is talking about, was able to do 25 million vaccinations in a single day, what we were doing pre-COVID, over a year. And that is the power of what Mr. Sharma is building and talking about can unleash. And CoWIN is the reference architecture for ABDM building blocks, which Mr. Sharma spoke about. So in this huge land of opportunity, then where is the stumbling block, or what do I see as the key thing that needs to happen to make this, engine that he spoke about, this highway, what can make cars, small, big, and large, ride on it? So the key constraint in making this a reality is going to be generating structured data. So the building blocks are there, but the structured data today is not there in the Indian healthcare ecosystem. What I mean by structured data is a structured discharge summary, which is machine readable, or outpatient notes, which is machine readable, or lab reports, which are machine readable. So once we have the structured data, which is machine readable, that is when a lot of applications and use cases, can start to benefit in terms of seamless movement of patients, seamless movements of information, and even seamless movement of payments and money. Today, if we look at the amount of spending that large and small hospitals, and Swamy, you spoke about the small nursing homes of the small hospitals, but even the larger hospitals, the amount of spend on technology is not more than 1 to 2 to 3% of their overall revenues. In some of the other market, it is as high as 7 to 8%. So one is just investment, and Mr. Sharma spoke about innovative ways in which that technology adoption can happen. Just the investment in creating basic digital infrastructure at the level of a doctor practice, at the level of a nursing home, at the level of a hospital, which can start to generate, structured data. That is point number one. Point number two, I wanted to speak about incentives. So even if we think about Obamacare, which was, sometime in 2010, and the act was passed. At that time, the EMR adoption in US hospitals was only 12%. Today, it is 96%. And how did that happen? That happened because a lot of incentives, a lot of billions of dollars of incentives were given to subsidize the technology adoption, in US. So whether it happens in terms of, the incentives getting created at a central or a government level, or whether it happens by a huge amount of low-cost innovation that happens in the country in the form of what Mr. Sharma spoke about, a very low-cost HMIS. But that is the first step that needs to happen, that a lot of, the fragmentation in the Indian healthcare ecosystem, each of these providers and doctors and so on need to adopt some technology so that we start generating machine readable data. And then we need to have data standards so that this data can be interoperable and doesn't reside in silos. Those data standards, have to be on, how is a discharge summary written? How is an e-prescription written? What kind of is the framework for the EMR standards? Those standards need to be aligned. They need to be communicated so that people don't start adopting their own standards, and then we have the problem of legacy. India has the beauty that we don't have a problem of legacy. We don't have digitization to begin with, and therefore we have the opportunity to leapfrog and start from the beginning with standards which make the data that starts to get generated interoperable. So that is the second point I would make. And the third is that even in terms of just delivery of healthcare services, today we have no open protocols or open networks. And therefore, what we have, while a very, very vibrant digital healthcare system, which has grown over the last 2, 3, 4 years, we still have a lot of, ring-fenced gardens, where, let's say, the doctor has to log on to a particular app. The patient also has to, be part of that same app. They have to have, that's where they do a teleconsultation or they're able to interact. This has to become completely interoperable so that the patient journey starts to become seamless. And these open architecture networks of protocols need to be created. And lastly, I would emphasize the point that Mr. Sharma spoke about. It is going to, Rome was not built in a day. It will not happen overnight, but it'll probably happen over a period of 5, 7, 10 years. But the first set of applications of this can start to happen in as soon as 1 to 2 years. If the whole industry, including bodies like CAHO and including all the other bodies which work together, start to accelerate the creation of these digital public goods, which is registries, the doctor registries, the healthcare registries, and start to adopt these standards, which will get aligned and rolled out. And then the cars can start to ride on this highway, similar to what happened in the financial services sector. So I'll pause with these short comments.
I will thank you, Priyanka. We really appreciate your input on structured data standardization, and interoperability as the key factors which will make integration as a major thing in a holistic thing. I have just one input on that for you to give us. When you talked about incentives for adaptation in US, what could be the similarity we could think of?
So one could be just, today we have a certain amount of spend going into the government schemes. Could all of them be linked to usage of these digital public goods that are getting created? So that, the current spend that is there in different either national scheme or even the vertical schemes, that are all linked to usage on this standard framework. That could be one way to, create these incentives. From a top-down level. And then there is always, India as an entrepreneurial country, there are always bottom-up innovations that will come up, which make it more easy and seamless. Still some cost, but small cost for the adoption.
Thank you, Priyanka.
Meanwhile, in terms of implementation, Priyanka, do you have any thoughts of how this whole thing is going to really flow down to hospitals and individual doctors, or is it going to be mandated, do you think, at any time?
I don't think it will get mandated, although it's not my scope to speak on that. Health continues to be a state subject in India. It is very hard to implement things by mandating. But I think it has to be the ecosystem where some incentives initially are required and then pull-based factors will take over because people will see the value. Just like, of course, there was a tailwind of demonetization which pushed UPI adoption, but we've already had a tailwind of COVID in the digital health adoption, both from consumers and doctors' side. So with that tailwind and with some critical mass getting created in terms of digitization, I think that this can take off.
So, since we had the benefit of you here, all the large hospitals already have their very robust health record systems, and that's how they also have their own identity. So as this new architecture comes in, would they have to surrender their IDs and only have one national ID? Will all records be only at the level of NDHM, or people will still have their own records? What do you see as the future?
So the data is always, it's a federated architecture. The data is neither owned by the hospitals nor by NDHM. It is owned by individuals and will be a consent-based architecture, as is the case with the financial services stack. And that consent-based architecture allows data to exchange for the point in time that it is needed. What hospitals will need to do is to make sure that their implementation of EMR is compliant to the standards that get agreed, so that that data can actually move across. The fundamental principle on which this is built is that data is not owned by anybody, it is only owned by the individual, and basis consent it is exchanged. So that is the way this will happen. I think most of the large hospitals definitely have the implementation of some HMIS, some EMR. They only need to make it compliant to the standards that will get aligned. That is a problem even in countries like US, honestly, that different people have different implementations. And that is sort of the journey ahead of us.
Thanks.
Another point to look at is currently look at the healthcare landscape of India. Currently, let us consider we have leave the clinics and all. We are supposed to have about almost 40 to 50,000 hospitals. If we take it's about 18 lakh beds covered in India between private and public space. Even if we take this larger hospital chains, what we are talking, they are only covering a fraction of Indian healthcare. If you take all of them put together, they are not even 1 lakh bed. All Apollo, Fortis, Manipal, all of them put together. The balance, about 4 to 5 lakh beds are available in the small and medium scale hospitals. We don't have a standardization or anything. Maybe that is where a crux is there to crack. How do we get them to follow a certain practice to do? Because they will become a real game changer, because a lot of people are going through that system. Leave alone the clinic and the OPD practice, the hospital-based, almost about 45,000 smaller to 200-bedded hospitals are there, individual doctor-provers and small segment hospitals. How do we get there? Standardization is also another thought process we have to see. Priyanka, your thoughts on that?
Dr. Swamy, I agree. India has a massive challenge of fragmentation in healthcare, not just in hospitals, but also in our geography, in our, how doctors are there and so on. I feel that obviously there is a challenge of fragmentation of reaching these 600,000 hospitals, most of which are not in the larger chains. But at the same time, the smaller ones are also the most to gain, because then they will not have to create their own platform to be able to provide healthcare services digitally. They will be able to ride on the infrastructure which is already there. They will not have to create their own registry to authenticate that a real doctor is consulting with a real patient. They can ride on the registries that already exist. Right now, what is happening is that it is oligopolistic, right? Some of the startups or some of the larger incumbents are able to create these validated, their own private registries, and therefore enable these transactions. Once that becomes a public good, that investment will not have to be made by the smaller nursing homes, and they stand to gain the most as well. So the incentives for them are pretty strong once the scale takes effect and some of that is in place.
Yes, that. Thank you, Priyanka. I think we have heard 3 eminent experts who have given different aspects, especially Priyanka told about the challenges of the technology, especially how do we get that into the space, and what is it that we need to keep on mind, especially on the standardization and the data integration to be brought on. Then interoperability became a major issue, where she rightfully said, and thank you, Priyanka.